First and foremost, all praises are due to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakak Radash. Double honors to the elder apostles and bishops of Great Millstone for teaching us his truth. Salutations to the brothers around the four corners of the earth who are teaching this word and truth and sincerity. And shalom to the hopeful elect, a few men, women, and children that believe in this word. This is your brother Karat Sabah coming at you with another lesson. This one is entitled, The Unbelieving Spouse is Sanctified by the Believing Spouse. So if you have a woman, okay, that's considered your wife, that's your spouse. Okay? If you're a wife and you have a husband, that's your spouse. So let's begin with 1 Corinthians 7 and verse 12. This is Paul speaking. But to the rest speak I, not the Lord. If any brother hath a wife that believeth not, and she be pleased to dwell with him, let him not put her away. And the woman which hath an husband that believeth not, and if he be pleased to dwell with her, let her not leave him. So Paul is telling you right here, if you come into this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of this truth, and you have a spouse, okay, a woman has a husband has a wife, all right? Let's say you're a woman, the wife, and your husband doesn't believe in this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, this gospel of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. You are not to leave them. You're to stick with them. And the opposite is true of your man. You believe in this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of this truth, and your woman doesn't, believe in this truth. You are to stay with them. You're not to leave them. Now, IUIC, Israel United in Confusion, says the total opposite, and it's contrary to what Paul is saying. They tell you that if you have a spouse that doesn't believe in this truth, that you are to leave them. All right? So they are actually, adding to the words of this book, which is a no-no. So if you have an unbelieving spouse, you are to stay with them. Let's read verse 14. For the unbelieving husband is sanctified by the wife, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified by the husband. Else were your children unclean, but now are they holy. All right? So the unbelieving husband is sanctified by the wife, made holy by the wife, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified by the husband. So you are not to leave your spouse, all right? And your children and your whole family is holy based on just one person believing in this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Let's get a definition of that word, sanctified. See real quick, see what that says here. This is the Greek translation of the word sanctified.
Strong's G37, hagiadzo. Hagiadzo.
Says here, to separate from profane things and dedicate to Yahweh. Consecrate things to Yahweh. All right, to purify. To purify by expiation, free from the guilt of sin. To purify internally by renewing of the soul. So your spouse is purified by your belief in this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, made holy. Let's go back here to the scriptures real quick. Okay, let's read this again. 1 Corinthians 7 and verse 14. For the unbelieving husband is sanctified by the wife, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified by the husband. Else were your children unclean, but now are they holy. So let's get Genesis chapter 2 and verse 24. Genesis 2 and verse 24, and it reads, Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. So whether or not your spouse believes or not, in this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, you are one flesh. You are united in one. So the unbelieving spouse is sanctified by the believing spouse, made holy. and also can be saved on the day of the Lord when Yahushua comes, cracks those clouds, comes with that big gigantic chariot. All right. If you believe, okay, and your spouse doesn't believe, it's going to be to the saving of your whole household if one member believes. Okay. If one spouse believes, the whole household will be saved. So let's go back to 1 Corinthians 7, and let's read this again. All right. 1 Corinthians 7 and verse, you know what? Let's read 1 Corinthians 7 and verse 14 again. For the unbelieving husband is sanctified by the wife, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified by the husband. Else were your children unclean, but now are they holy. So everybody will be saved based on the one believing spouse. Let's read verse 15. But if the unbelieving depart, let him depart. A brother or a sister is not under bondage in such cases, but Yahweh hath called us to peace. So if you have the unbelieving partner leave, Paul is saying here, let them leave. Let's go up here to 1 Corinthians 7 and verse 10 for some context on that. 1 Corinthians 7 and verse 10. And unto the married I command, yet not I, but the Lord, let not the wife depart from her husband. So if you do have an unbelieving wife, she is not to depart from her husband, just to make that clear, to put everything in context. But if she depart, let her remain unmarried or be reconciled to her husband, and let not the husband put away his wife. So if a woman does leave, okay, her husband, she is to remain single, all right? She's to remain single or be reconciled back with her husband. And the husband, the man, is not to put away his wife, just to put everything in context there. So let's go back to 1 Corinthians 7, and let's get verse 16. Let's get 1 Corinthians 7, verse 16 in NLT. Don't you wives realize that your husbands might be saved because of you? So you're not to put away your unbelieving spouse. And don't you husbands realize that your wives might be saved because of you? The unbelieving spouse is sanctified by the believing spouse. So that's what Paul is saying. Don't you realize that your spouse can be saved because of you, even if they don't believe? Let's read verse 17 in NLT. Each of you should continue to live in whatever situation the Lord has placed you and remain as you were when Yahweh first called you. This is my rule for all the churches. So Paul is saying, okay, when you came into this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, you may have been married, okay? If you were married, then you are to remain married to your spouse. However you came into this truth, okay, you keep your spouse with you. You don't put them off. You don't push them off, all right? You continue to live in whatever situation the Lord has placed you. You see, you may believe, your wife may not believe. It doesn't matter. You're not to leave off from your spouse. This is made very, very clear in these scriptures. So on that note, I want to give all praises to Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai, B'Hashem Rakak Wadash. I hope this lesson was edifying to you. Shalom.